Welcome everybody, it's Taormino here, and today's a great day because I just finished the WWE Extreme Rules pay-per-view, and I have to say, it wasn't that bad of a pay-per-view. Now I'm going to try to make this quick, but I do want to make a little caveat here. I apologize for not getting the Backlash video out last pay-per-view. I had some technical difficulties when I uploaded it, and unfortunately I deleted the source data, so I wasn't able to recover it, and it was at that point just worthless to try to redo it, so I apologize about that. Hopefully everything will be much better now, but I want to get into the Extreme Rules kickoff show. The match, which was it felt like it was very thrown together. There's a couple matches in this pay-per-view that felt like there were no story behind, and they just rushed to fill the card. It was Kalisto versus Apollo Crews. Now, Apollo Crews is being managed by Titus O'Neil, which was really the only entertaining part of this match. He was really animated on ringside, which was really, really funny to watch. Kalisto, I will admit, he looks really cool in his ring gear and his makeup. There was nothing really amazing to say about this match. I mean, Apollo Crews did his standing moonsault onto Kalisto, which is cool for a man of his size. Kalisto ends up winning this match. Like I said, there's nothing much to talk about here. I'm going to try to rate these matches as I go through on a scale of 1 to 5. This match I would give a 2 out of 5. There wasn't much story. There wasn't much build. Other than Titus O'Neil capturing our attention, there wasn't really much going on in the ring. Nothing that was great. The finisher was really lame. He held Apollo Crews' head and he kind of like ran up Titus O'Neil on the apron and gave him like a standing sliced bread. So yeah, it was nothing really crazy. So to start off the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, as it seems like this always happens, The Miz is the very first to come out. He seems like he kicks off the show. Every single Raw, every single match. It's like every time I turn on wrestling on Monday Night Raw, The Miz always starts coming out. It's ridiculous. But it was The Miz versus the Intercontinental Champion, Dean Ambrose. The stipulation, if Dean Ambrose gets disqualified, he also forfeits the title to The Miz. It's kind of like a backwards Extreme Rules. It's like if you do something wrong, then you kind of have to lose your title for it. So don't do anything wrong in Extreme Rules. I wrote a bunch of notes here, but the big points of this match, it was a simple back and forth match. It had a decent build. At one point in the fairly beginning of the match, The Miz grabbed a steel chair, trying to use it on Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose knocked it away from him outside the ring and picked it up and was going to use it on him, and the ref pulled it away and stopped him. He's like, I'm going to DQ you if you do that. So one of the pivotal moments in the match, Dean Ambrose does I don't know if it was a sunset flip, or he tries to give Miz a powerbomb from the top of the top rope, and the Miz is trying to fight him back, and he ends up pulling the turnbuckle off the corner, and he doesn't land the powerbomb because Miz slides out, or I think he slid out, or he landed him, I don't know, but he tried to grab Miz and like slam his head up against the turnbuckle and stopped himself. He's like, if I do that, I'm going to get DQ'd. And eventually throughout the match, I actually called this. I told my wife, Amanda, I was like, this is how this match is going to end. And it actually ended. It was pretty predictable. Maurice got on the apron, and Dean Ambrose almost hit her. And then he dodged out of the way, and like Miz almost hit her because they didn't want to get disqualified. And then he tells Maurice, slap me in the face. So Maurice slaps him, and then they look at like the ref like, oh, you got to DQ Dean Ambrose, or you got to DQ Dean Ambrose now because she slapped Miz. And the ref's like, what are you doing? I know what you're doing. Get out of here. I'm kicking you out. Go back into the shadows or whatever. So she starts walking out, and she starts an argument on the ramp with the ref. The ref leans out like halfway the middle of the rope and is like, you got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. Miz ends up pushing Dean into the referee. The referee tumbles out of the ring, and then as he's walking back to the ring announcer to assume or possibly DQ Dean Ambrose for hitting him, Dean's like, no, I didn't do it. And then the Miz, while Dean is looking at the referee, the Miz hits his skull-crushing finale and gets the pinfall on Dean Ambrose and is the new 7-time Intercontinental Champion. I don't care. Great on this match. Middle of the road. 3 of 5. Next, we have another thrown together match. I don't know. I don't watch Raw when it's like live. I watch it on Hulu the day after because I choose to not want to have to sit through an hour and a half of ads. But I don't recall this match being really put together. It was Noam Dar, who is a cruiserweight on the cruiserweight division, and Alicia Fox versus Rich Swann and Sasha Banks. Clearly, this is an attempt to try to advertise the cruiserweight division, which I have to applaud them. A lot of those cruiserweights are really, really awesome. A lot of this match consisted of cat fights. It wasn't too many, but a majority of Sasha Banks and Alicia Fox fighting. It was them rolling around or rolling out of the ring or like getting the scuffles. They had a brief fight in the beginning that was decent, and then when they tagged in the cruiserweights, it was all cruiserweights. Towards the end of the match, Sasha Banks landed a double knee onto Noam Dar outside the ring, and when he came in the ring, Rich Swann landed his Phoenix Splash on him and got the 3 count. So Rich Swann and Sasha Banks won the match here. The wrestling was actually really good. They had a very slight build. There wasn't too much. I feel that because everyone was thrown together, there wasn't much story. It was just people wrestling, so there wasn't too much anticipation or emotional build-up into the characters, into their fight on this match. So I give this match a 3 out of 5. Next, we have an in-ring promo by Elias Samson, and he basically just sings about how crappy Baltimore is, and that there is a beast that needs to be slayed, which he was referring to Brock Lesnar, and was really it. The crowd was booing him pretty heavy. I don't know why they don't like him. I like the guy. Maybe he can have a little bit of a better voice, but he's great on the guitar, so I don't know. But he was cool. I really hope that they give him a good, strong build of a character within the next 6 months. I'd love to see him really challenging for that Intercontinental Championship. Next, we have kendo stick on a pole match for the Raw Women's Championship. Bayley versus the champion, Alexa. And again, like I said last time, we had to turn our Amazon dot off because every time they said Alexa Bliss in the match, that thing just kept going off. And eventually my wife was like, Alexa, off! So she turned the thing off because it kept going on and on and on and on and on. So what happened in this match was, as they were playing up the entire time, before the pay-per-view, at the pre-show, they were saying that they don't know if Bayley has that extreme in her, right? I don't know if she can use the kendo stick or she can really hurt someone because she loves everybody so much. Yada, 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 right? This constant. So eventually, they get to the kendo stick pretty quickly within this match. Within the first couple minutes, they were able to grab the kendo stick. Eventually, it was laying on the like when they grabbed the stick, they were both on the ropes. They both fell outside the ring. It was in the middle of the ring. They both slid in to try to get it. Bayley pushed Alexa Bliss out of the ring, leaving the kendo stick alone. She kept seeing like she was trying to avoid the kendo stick. Eventually, she did pick it up, and she hesitated using it, and by doing so, Bliss ended up tackling her and then proceeded to beat Bayley about 7 times with the kendo stick. Eventually, after she hit her the 7th time, Bayley got up and gave her the Bayley to belly suplex, but wasn't able to pin her because she was so hurt from the kendo stick. Eventually, Alexa Bliss propped up the kendo stick into the corner, like on the floor to like the second turnbuckle. Eventually, Bayley got pushed into it as she did the pole, the new plastic pole that they have now, making her lose her title to Bliss in the past. She hit that, and then Bliss went ahead and hit her with the DDT and won the match and retained the Raw Women's Championship. The only thing I would critique on this match is I wish it was later in the card, and I also wish that they gave it another 5 to 10 minutes. This match kind of felt rushed. It felt really short. It was really only close to about 10 minutes, if I recall properly. With that being said, we've seen better matchups between these two superstars. I give this match a 3 out of 5. And next, we have this steel cage match with the Hardys versus Sheamus and Cesaro for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. I wrote them down in my notes as the Hardys and Cesaro because I just got sick and tired of writing Sheamus and Cesaro, especially when my computer kept trying to correct it when I was taking notes in the show. but both parties were required to exit the cage in order to win this match. So say if one member exited the cage, the team would not win unless if the other member exited the cage as well. It seemed like they were announcing that they had to do it at the same time, which was slightly confusing. But regardless, it was the Hardys in a steel cage, which is always, whenever you get to see that, is awesome. So you have the Hardys and Cesaro both using moves on the opposing team, using a lot of the steel cage. We got to see poetry in motion, and instead of in the turnbuckle, it was into the steel cage. There was a lot of different moves, which I thought were cool, that don't happen often, which I would like to see more. For example, Sheamus would Irish whip Cesaro or Jeff Hardy, and then Cesaro was trying to whip like Matt Hardy at each other to collide the two Hardys, for example, right? I don't remember how this happened, but like collide the two Hardys. But then like Matt Hardy would then reverse it, and then it was like Cesaro that hit Jeff Hardy. So it's like two of the opposing teams hitting each other, which you normally don't see. It's usually the same team that would get collided. So they kind of had that flow. Like, for example, there was a part where Jeff Hardy was on the top rope after he was trying to climb the cage. Sheamus was pulling him down, and Sheamus went to go give him a power bomb, but he ended up hooking Cesaro in a Russian leg sweep. So when Cesaro went to go, or when Sheamus went to go and powerbomb Jeff Hardy down, he pulled Cesaro down with him in the Russian leg sweep. So it was like Sheamus was kind of inadvertently hurting his own tag partner. So I liked how there was like a mix up of different types of moves. But it was cool to see the tag teams double teaming moves, which was nice. We got to see Matt Hardy, who was on the top rope, and both Cesaro and Sheamus grabbed him by each one of his arms and gave him like a Celtic cross, or like the cross arm powerbomb, or however you want to call that move now. But both gave it to him together, which was nice. So it was cool to see a lot of the different types of double team moves in the match. Eventually, Jeff Hardy, like a spider monkey, was able to climb over the cage and escape the cage, leaving Matt Hardy all alone to fend for himself, which I was telling my wife, it's probably best. Let one person just leave the ring and just beat the holy heck out of the other guy, so then that way he can't get up and stand, and you both walk out the door together. It was close to that, except for Matt Hardy was extremely resilient. Matt Hardy actually started controlling the match on both Sheamus and Cesaro for a long period of time. Eventually, he started getting the beat down from both of them, and Jeff Hardy tried to go in through the side door. Sheamus gave him a brogue kick to kick him out. Eventually, when he stumbled back to his feet, he climbed up the cage and back into the match, which then nullifies his feet touching the floor, which means that he was active in the match again. Eventually, towards the very end of the match, both Sheamus and Cesaro started climbing the cage. Oh, well, when Jeff Hardy climbed up to the top of the cage, he did a freaking crazy flip and landed on Sheamus and Cesaro. Matt Hardy ran towards the door to get out. Sheamus and Cesaro eventually started climbing, and they were already on the other side of the cage. And Matt's like, oh crap, I need Jeff now too. So he runs and grabs Jeff. He starts dragging his lifeless body all the way to the door. Unfortunately, or for some people, happily, Sheamus and Cesaro touch their feet on the floor before Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy get completely drug out of the ring. Matt Hardy was out. Jeff didn't fully make it out in time. The titles are now on the waist of Cesaro and Sheamus. So those are your winners. That match was great. I don't think it was a perfect match. There was a couple of blunders, but that's going to happen in cage matches and in match types like this. Certainly a 4.5 out of 5. I know. Do you deal with points, like half points? Yeah, I'll deal with half points. You know, it's not a 10 scale. But this match was really, really good. It really started picking up through the pay-per-view that this was a good match to watch. Speaking of picking up, the next match we have was a submission match for the Cruiserweight Championship. Austin Aries versus the current Cruiserweight Champion, Neville, the king of the Cruiserweights. So this match was a heavy back and forth. In the beginning, Austin Aries carried the match, and it had a lot of control in the beginning of the match, which was good to see because you'd think that he would just get stomped out by Neville. a couple of big moments in this match. Austin seemed to be outmaneuvering Neville, hitting him with a ton of submission moves in the beginning, kind of slightly wearing Neville down. But Neville doesn't get worn down. This guy he's a freak of nature, this guy. This guy can just go on forever. Eventually, Austin Aries tried to give a missile drop kick to Neville. Neville was able to dodge that and lock in the Ring of Saturn onto Austin Aries, which really really drained him. And eventually, at one point in the match, Austin Aries was able to hit a sunset powerbomb onto Neville, and after he hit it, Neville kind of flipped onto his back. Austin Aries carried over into the last chancery and locked it in on him. Now, what happened was Neville, as he's been dodging this submission the last couple of matches he's had with Aries, he slowly slid his way under the ring rope into outside of the ring. Now, Austin had broken the submission, but locked it in on him outside the ring. He ended up tapping outside the ring. The referee was like, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't count because it's outside the ring. It needed to be within the ring in order for the tap out to count. So what happens is Aries then tries to land a suicide dive onto Neville. Neville ducks under him. He lands flat, knocks the wind completely out of him. And then what happens is Neville quickly throws Austin Aries in the ring, hits the red arrow on him on his back. So he lands on Austin Aries' back and then proceeds to put him into the Rings of Saturn, and then he taps out. The red arrow landing on Austin Aries' back sounded really bad because he kind of was trying to slide into position so he wouldn't get hurt as much, because Neville doing that red arrow, he can only go so far. It's not really a depth thing that he can go deep into the ring lengthwise. He just kind of gets air and he spins around and he kind of lands in the same general area every single time. So he tried to slide into position, and as he kind of slid into position, because he can't see him coming down, right? You know, normally it's like, okay, I can see him, I can slide a little bit, but he couldn't, so he kind of was like popped up and looking up, and he had to like kind of like slide over a little bit. And as he slid over, it looked like he took like a leg into the kidney or something behind his back, which he heard a loud pop. When he locked it in, that was it. He tapped. He was donezo. So the winner of the match, Neville, retaining the Cruiserweight Championship. Grade on this match, very high, 5 out of 5. This was a great match. I love seeing these Cruiserweights in action. I'm very, very glad that they're starting to get some sort of attention. These guys are awesome. Keep showing us more Cruiserweights. And last but not least, this is a mouthful. We have our Extreme Rules Fatal 5-Way for the number one contendership for the WWE Universal Championship. You got that? So we've got Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins versus Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns. My prediction of this match was that Roman Reigns was going to walk away with this, and somehow Braun Strowman would come back before SummerSlam and take the number one contendership off of Roman Reigns, because he's getting super cocky now. So that was my prediction. So this match started with Samoa Joe and Seth Rollins going at it, and they dive out of the ring. They're beating each other up. Bray Wyatt goes for Finn Balor. They're beating each other up. They go outside the ring. So Roman Reigns is just standing there in the middle of the ring. He's just like, whatever. So then after a while, one by one, someone would come in and challenge him. Like Bray would slide in and try to beat up Roman Reigns, and then Roman Reigns was like smack around a little bit, and he'd kind of like roll out of the ring. Then Finn would come in, and he'd beat him up and roll out of the ring. Joe would come in, he'd beat him up, like kind of like, all right, he's the king of the castle, right? And then when Seth came in, then all of a sudden Bray and Samoa Joe came in together and started beating up Roman Reigns. They started having an alliance through about 2/3 of the match. They started taking out Roman Reigns. They threw him into the steel steps, and they picked up the steel steps together, slammed into Roman, slammed into Seth, slammed into Finn Balor. They were pretty much handling everybody. Then they threw Balor in the ring. Then they just completely just beat the living heck out of Finn Balor. And then all of a sudden, when Seth would try to come in, they'd whoop him up. Then Seth started coming back a little bit. Eventually, it got to a point where Seth Rollins was doing suicide dives outside the ring, and there was a point where Samoa Joe and Bray Wyatt were next to each other. He tried to dive on him, and Bray kind of like grabbed Joe and like pushed him, like he was like, "Here, you take this, buddy boy," and Samoa Joe took it. So then after Joe took the suicide dive from Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt slid in the ring and delivered the Sister Abigail to Seth Rollins, started to pin him. We haven't seen many pins in this match just at this time. Samoa Joe breaks it up on the 2 count and proceeds to ask why Bray Wyatt kind of pushed him into the the suicide dive. And they proceed to beat the holy heck out of each other, which was cool to see. I love it when alliances come together and then break up in front of us when they don't need it anymore. So the best way to describe this match, other than breaking down exactly what happened via play-by-play, there was a lot of different combinations of people going in and out, fighting in the match, teaming up with one another, beating each other up. It was just like a good back and forth. It was able to hold my attention very well in regards to, Finn and Seth. Oh no, like Finn and Joe, like Bray and Roman, and then, you know what I mean? So kind of just all these different types of combinations of everybody wrestling one another, which was nice. When it started to really break down, Finn went and pulled out the Spanish announce table, threw Bray on it, was going to go and give him probably the coup de grace on through the table. And then Samoa Joe went and tried to lock in the coquina clutch on him, and Finn was kind of squirming, so he was trying to get it put in properly, and he backed into the dreaded, I'm going to spear you through the barricade corner, and Roman Reigns ended up spearing both of them through the barricade, which pretty much laid them out for a majority of the match. As they got speared, Seth Rollins went up onto the top rope and gave a very, very heightened frog splash onto Bray Wyatt through the Spanish announce table, which then left Seth and Roman Reigns alone in the ring. They proceeded to beat each other back and forth. They kind of copied what they did on Raw. Seth Rollins pulled Roman Reigns up for a turnbuckle powerbomb. He powerbombed him into the turnbuckle, but then he kind of just like bounced off and gave him the Superman punch. And so they both were kind of like laid out. Finn Balor came in and just gave Roman the works. He gave him the sling blade, then he gave him that drop kick into the corner. He bounced off, then he went and landed the coup de grace on him. And then when he went to go pin him, Samoa Joe slid in and put in the coquina clutch on him. And Roman was out because he just got that finishing move. Finn Balor passes out. Samoa Joe, your number 1 contender to fight Brock Lesnar for the WWE Universal Championship. This match totally was a 5 out of 5. There's a steel chair involved. They broke people through barricades and through the Spanish announce table, which was nice. Roman Reigns had some blood around his mouth. It seems to always be bleeding from the mouth for some reason. But either way, it had a lot of different combinations within this match that I was able to stay entertained within the match, along with little pieces of Extreme Rules added in there, where it was nice. They had the steel steps, or they had the steel chair. Unlike the Women's Championship match, where they used the kendo stick a couple times, it was like, oh, well, we used a weapon, so it's Extreme Rules, and then that's it. You know, this one actually felt like they were doing damage to one another. Each one of them had peaks and falls. You know, they came in and they were doing their finisher, and then all of a sudden they didn't get to do their finisher. They got interrupted, or they got beat up after their finisher. So it was kind of like one was toppling over the other. So it was very, very nice to see. I would definitely give this match a 5 out of 5. It was a great way to end the match. I did not expect Samoa Joe to win this. I actually probably would have voted him to be the least person to walk away with the win in this match. But it only makes sense. Maybe we'll see some Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt feud going on next. Maybe some Seth and Roman Reigns until Braun Strowman comes out. So maybe we'll start to see some different feuds coming out here in the near future. But overall, I would give the pay-per-view anywhere from I know I didn't want to do pluses and minuses, a B+. The pay-per-view was pretty good. A couple of matches felt like they were thrown together and just thrown in to fill out the card. Technically, the pay-per-view ended about 15 minutes early than it should have. They gave an hour allotment to the main event match, which I thought was a little weird. I expected it to be 30 to 45 minutes, which it was about 45 minutes, including entrances. So they really could have given that extra 10 minutes to Bayley and Alexa Bliss's match because it really deserved it. If we had more time with that match, it would have been a heck of a lot better. It really seemed just too short. But I'm excited, guys. In the next 2 weeks, we have Money in the Bank with SmackDown. We're going to have the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I am so excited for that. I'm down for making history. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Tune in next time.